Welcome to Get Shirty, the podcast where we ask our guests about the things in life that just never fail to irritate and get them all shirty. The chat focuses on home, work and going out, but could go anywhere. And it's not all doom and gloom, as each guest gets a made-to-measure shirt which they design, so we talk about that too. Funny that, us being tailors. It's podcast time once again, so welcome to episode 5. Episode 5, can you believe it? Of the Get Shirty podcast, where we chat with Top Chef and Master Chef alumni Tony Rod. Tony came into the public eye as a contestant on MasterChef, where he was a finalist in 2015. Since then, Tony has continued to be a chef and is a passionate advocate of the hospitality trade. We recorded the podcast in November in 2023, and we drank a little wine too. So here we are, one guest, 2 mics, 3 tailors, and a host of irritations. Let's get shirty. Welcome to the Get Shirty podcast. It's lovely to have you here. How are you?
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's very good to be here. I'm very well, thank you.
Good. Well, and we've had a chat before starting recording the podcast, and we've sorted out your shirt.
Yes, indeed.
Something very stylish, I think. What were your choices? What have you gone for?
I've gone for a blue striped body with a white collar and double cuffs. I tend to wear a lot of 1920s to 1940s suits, and I've just recently purchased a very nice collar bar, so I think it should work with that, I hope.
Yeah, I think very, very nice as well. Especially, I think the style that you've gone for has got that really nice look where it'll work with a sort of more contemporary style and something that's a bit more vintage too. So
absolutely.
Sort of can blur the lines a little bit, which is good.
That's very much how I live my life, blurring the lines.
Blurring the lines. Well, that'll be the wine that you very kindly brought along today.
Thank you very much.
I didn't even look to see what it was I was drinking, other than I went, oh, that was nice.
It's tasty. I think this is one of the things that my wife and I focus on a lot, which is drinking and tasting good wines.
Yeah.
But finding wines that are maybe a bit more unusual and good, both for drinking at home, but also for the restaurant. And this is just a nice Kiran, which is essentially a Côte d'Arôme blend, Grenache, Syrah, Mourvèdre, and it's by our really good friends at Boutonneau Wines. So we love these guys and like their wine.
Excellent. Well, it's very nice. I can highly recommend, and I will listen back to this and write all of that down, and then repeat it at any given time, so I sound like I know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
But also so I can get it again. That's very nice. Very nice. So, shirt's done. Wine is done.
Yes.
Excellent. So, the other thing that we're here to talk about today is just those little things in life that get under our skin. Hence the podcast being called Get Shirty.
On the route over here, I realised that you basically must have a list of guests that are all miserable.
Well, I mean, sure there is that.
Let's talk about what gets under our skin.
Yeah, exactly. But we do try and put a positive spin on it where we can, and it's in fact we've had a couple of people sit there and go, actually there's nothing really about that gets under my nerves. I'm gonna have to start making things up. But yeah, so it's the lighter heart.
Absolutely.
Side of things.
Right, I'll scratch a few of these off my list now then.
So let's go for it. So the way we look at it is work, home and play.
Yes.
Or the Mars Bar view of work, rest and play. And we really start with work. So I mean, obviously you run your own business, you're very successful in what you do. Is there anything at all about it that, I mean, it, in fact, doesn't even have to be current work, it could be something from the past?
I'll be honest with you, when we opened the restaurant 5 years ago, Becky and I asked ourselves, why have we opened a restaurant? Because we hate people. And I think the reality is we don't hate people. And anyone that frequents our restaurant, we love you. Thanks for coming. And if you haven't been, then please do come, because we're really nice in real life. But there are so many things that wind us up at the restaurant. And of course, you spend so many hours there as a chef or as a restaurateur that the little things wind you up. And funnily enough, before we started recording, I said, a lot of people don't understand how restaurants work. So I can't blame them when they turn up and expect us to be able to cook them food without onions in. And they don't realise that I've been there from 7 o'clock in the morning, chopping and sweating down onions and putting them in everything that we've cooked. So I can kind of forgive people with a lot of this. But there are things that get under my skin. And I think one of them that definitely comes to mind is when people come in and they say, I'm dairy free. And we'll always ask everyone when they sit down, is there anything you can't eat? Because we're feeders, that's what we do. We want to make sure that you can eat. And we also want to make sure that you don't go home either dead or with a really bad belly. So the first thing we ask is, are there any dietary requirements, anything you can't eat? And someone will say to us, well, I'm dairy free. We say, okay, no problem. And most of our food can be done dairy free, but inevitably there's 1 or 2 dishes that we just can't do without cream or butter. And they want that dish. And then they'll tell us afterwards, oh, it's all right. I'll have that anyway. It's okay if I have a bit of dairy. And for me, it's that, don't tell me you can't have dairy and then order something with dairy in and say it's going to be all right, because to a certain extent, we've got a duty of care to look after you. Sure. But just keep it to yourself if you're not going to. I shouldn't drink wine. But I don't ever turn up somewhere and say, oh, I can't drink wine. I'll have a glass of the Côte de Rhône, please. I just keep that to myself and just order a glass of wine, because I know they're going to look at me and go, what are you doing? What are you doing?
So it's that sort of... It's almost like showing off or something, isn't it? Like, oh, I can't do that, but I'm going to.
But they're going to anyway. It's really strange. I think dietary requirements and allergens and intolerances are something that are more prevalent now than they have been in the past. I think a lot of that is processed foods and the way, certainly in this country more than in continental Europe as an example, we treat food and we eat. And I think we're seeing more allergies and intolerances more than ever. Over the last couple of years. But I think there's also a lack of understanding. And there are a lot of people that are saying, well, I'm not eating gluten at the moment. And you say, well, why aren't you eating gluten? Well, I'm on this diet. Gluten isn't going to in any way affect your diet, apart from probably not give you bits that you need in it. And unless you have an intolerance to it or an allergy to it, you shouldn't cut it out for the sake of it. And a lot of the time people will say, well, I can't eat gluten, so I'm not having potatoes. You go, well, potatoes aren't gluten. Potatoes are carbs. So again, I think there is an element of that, people just not understanding it and making it up. But I think there's
twisting things to suit their...
And self-diagnosing as well. Oh, yeah, I shouldn't eat dairy. Well, why is that? I went out last night and I came home and had an awful belly. What did you do last night? Well, I had a really nice meal and then I had 20 pints of Guinness. I suspect it's not the meal. So
might be the Guinness.
If you are going to go out for dinner, and you are going to eat whatever you want to anyway, don't tell people that you can't eat certain things, because the chefs are going to be annoyed.
Well, like you say, if there's always that thing, especially in the world where we live now, where reviews are king and everything else, if you've been told, I can't eat this, but I'm going to eat it anyway, ultimately they're going to turn around and go, well, I ate it there and this is the reason. They're not going to go, oh, well, it was my own fault. People don't really like to take the blame for
No, never. It's a funny one, isn't it? But I can forgive these people, because at the end of the day they eat really tasty food. But
that's true. So when you're putting together a menu, do you have that sort of thought in your head that I need to make this as flexible as possible so I can take those things out if I need to? Or
yes and no. So we actually approach it in a slightly different way. We try and design a menu that doesn't have the ingredient in it in the first place. So my wife Becky is gluten intolerant. So our entire menu is gluten-free. We don't tell anyone that, because they don't need to know it. But if someone comes in and says, well, I'm gluten-free, so can you tell me what I can eat? We're really happy to then give them the menu and say, you can eat everything. And a lot of our guests that come in who have specific dietary requirements, they'll often say to us they feel really happy about eating with us, because A, they know that they can eat with confidence, and B, they don't get treated as a second-rate diner. And as a partner of someone who gets treated like that a lot, it's nothing worse than going to a restaurant or a pub, and you'll often get told, well, you can have the steak, but you can't really have the chips with it because they're cooked in a fryer with other things that have got gluten, and we can't cook you that, and if you do want a dessert, we can only give you sorbet.
Yeah.
And you think, well, what was the point of us coming out for dinner? It's just, it's a waste of time. So we try and approach our menu design every month with I want to make sure as many people can eat this as they can. So if I can substitute something for dairy, be it margarine instead of butter, or a dairy-free milk or cream in place of standard dairy-based cream and milk, then we will. Unless, of course, it really is needed in the dish to make the dish amazing.
Sure.
And sometimes that's the case, without that ingredient, it's just half.
Only butter will do.
Exactly that. And butter makes everything better, is the real truth of it.
Yeah.
So we try and approach it that way. And it also protects our guests, because if you are then putting out, sometimes for us, 80 covers, 80 plates of food, or 80 guests, essentially, in an evening, and one of them has to have something removed from the dish, it's a really easy mistake to send the wrong plate of food to that diner. So for us, we don't have that issue because everyone's eating the same thing on the table. So we try and approach it that way, because for us, we want it to be accessible. We want everyone just to be able to come in and enjoy their meal and feel like they're special guests, which essentially they are.
Yeah. And that's a really good way of sort of protecting, well, not even protecting, but sort of future-proofing yourself.
Absolutely.
It's nice. And I'm not sure if many places take that sort of care.
Not really.
It's a sort of eye roll and a tut kind of thing.
Yeah, it
sometimes,
can be.
it?
And I think that's what our guests like, that they don't get treated like that. It's just, you're just someone else that's coming in to eat in our restaurant, and we want you to have as nice a time as everyone else. And again, it's a conversation that I was having with Sam earlier, which was, if we do go to a restaurant, we'll always tell them in advance, Becky can't eat gluten.
Yeah.
So they know well in advance.
Yeah.
And if they were to contact us and say, we just can't accommodate that, we'll go, great, no problem. Thanks for letting us know. We'll find somewhere else. But it's when diners do turn up and it's, on the night, on a really busy Saturday night, and say, I can't eat onions.
Yeah.
And we think, well, it's too late now because I have been preparing this. Sometimes dishes are 3 or 4 days in the making.
Yeah.
And if the onion's the first thing that goes in, there's not a lot we can do at that. Yeah, there really
can't reverse engineer that one.
It's bizarre. So I would always say, if you are going to a restaurant and there is something you desperately can't eat, tell them in advance, and they love you for it, because they can basically prepare it or tell you that I'm really sorry, it's just not something we can do. Yeah,
and I have to say, actually, from a diner's point of view, it's really nice to turn up somewhere, as we did up the road up at Tallow, to turn up somewhere and for, as you walk in, goes, don't worry, we know you can't eat this, so we've prepared this and this, and we've taken this out of that dish.
Absolutely.
And it actually starts the experience off in a way that you feel looked after straight away.
Confident you can have a good time. Yeah.
So note to self, always tell the restaurant.
Absolutely.
I don't think there's anything I can't eat.
Anything you don't like eating?
Boiled eggs.
Oh yeah, boiled eggs. That's a good point, Stu. Yeah, they are. Yeah, I really don't like a boiled egg. And like a fried egg, it's all right. Scrambled eggs is all right, but cold boiled egg. I don't know a hard boiled egg. I don't know anybody can.
I'm in. I love a boiled egg. I mean, but I love that, and I love the fact that we have these things, and so many of our guests do, and it makes me laugh because you do sometimes get these strange requests where it's like, I can't have egg, and you go, oh, you're allergic to egg, and they go, oh no, I'm fine with egg if it's in a cake, or I'm fine with egg if it's made into something, but if it's actually egg, and you go, right, fine, okay, it's just an egg thing.
Just a boiled egg. I don't know why it's. I think actually
they scare you.
Some of it I could trace back to boiled eggs when I was a kid, where the yolk would pop out and it was all grey underneath.
I think a lot of us have got food dislikes that are from when we were kids. And my mum was an amazing cook, but there were certain things growing up that I didn't like, and your taste buds do change naturally. That then when you get to adulthood, you say, well, actually, I don't really like that. And it's until you eat it again as an adult and realise it's not that bad, that you go, actually, I'm an idiot. Beetroot's lovely. And I think a lot of people that we talk to, you go, why don't you eat this? And they say, oh, my mum used to make it for me when I was younger. And you go, well, I'm not your mum.
Yeah.
And I know you say you don't like mushrooms, but I'm going to give you a maitake mushroom or a king oyster mushroom. Yeah. Because the reason you don't like mushrooms, I guarantee, I'm looking at Sam right now, is because of the texture.
They make you sick.
They make you sick. Oh, is it an allergy? Oh, okay, it's an allergy.
Yeah.
But often with people, they go, I don't like button mushrooms, why not? It's the texture. And you go, okay, they're slimy.
Oh, they're slimy. Yeah.
And then we give them a maitake mushroom that's been barbecued and brushed with a real lovely soy glaze. Yeah. And that's not in any way slimy. Yeah. And that's got an amazing texture. Tastes of chicken, essentially. Right. Or we give them a king oyster mushroom, which is scored and pan-seared in garlic and rosemary. And it's got a meaty texture, and it takes on a really lovely garlic and herb flavour. And people go, well, actually, all of a sudden I like mushrooms. And you realise that it is a regression to childhood state when they had these slimy button mushrooms, and that's why they don't eat mushrooms. But we've won so many people over the years with food that we've just said, just try it. If you don't like it, I'll cook you something else, but I think you'll like this.
It does sound good.
Is it true that you have to eat something 6 times to know if you like it or not?
First thing my now wife asked when we first dated was, are you sure you're not gay? I tried it 6 times. And
definitely.
Still not, I wouldn't say definite, but I'm 90%. I've never heard that before. And I don't know whether that's true. I mean, I'd be surprised. I think if you like something, you like it.
Every year we make my mum eat an olive. She can't stand olives.
Okay.
And she does like actually goes, but the kids like to make her eat an olive. That's the sort of Christmas tradition. It's time for Granny to eat the olive.
This is going to be a really triggering podcast for many people. Not just the noise that you keep on making. Yeah. That is setting off people all around the country. Yeah. When we finish recording, you've got to go onto YouTube and quickly have a look to see if you can find the girl that retches whenever she hears anyone making that noise. And it is hilarious.
Really?
And I feel really sorry for her because her partner is the cruelest man I've ever seen in my life because he just does it all the time and then she retches. But yeah, so
we've lost her as a listener.
Yeah, he definitely lost her.
Yeah. The only one we had.
So Mum, I would say that's happened over 6 or 7 times now, and she still doesn't like olives. Perhaps it's in quick succession. I don't know. We'll try again this year.
There are certain flavours.
We'll know whether this is year 7.
Certain flavours that kids don't like because it's part of their makeup because kids shouldn't eat things that are poisonous to them and that might kill them. Right. And olives are one of those things that have that slightly acrid taste, that very bitter flavour, and a lot of things that are poisonous in nature taste the same. So kids shouldn't like the taste of olives, and some people just don't grow out of that.
Right.
But I therefore am always absolutely baffled when we get kids that come into the restaurant, and we have one young. I don't actually know whether it's a boy or girl because they always come in for lunch and I never see them because my kitchen is in a different place.
Right.
But their parents always ask us just to do them plain pasta with olive oil and olives in it. They're dairy free, so I know they can't have dairy, and that's why they don't have a sauce on it. But that's what they like. And I'm always baffled that this kid loves olives.
Right.
And there are certain things that really surprise me when you go, kids are asking for that. And when we get really bougie kids that come into the restaurant and they say, do you ever do steak tartare? I love steak tartare. And I go, how old are you? I'm 8. And you go, okay, great, this is wonderful. And rabbit. A bit of wild rabbit, that's a wonderful thing. And you think, you're 8 years old, you really shouldn't be eating these things, but I'm glad that you do. And I love kids that just want to eat food. And my niece and nephew on my wife's side, really big foodies and will try anything that they're given and genuinely enjoy it. And my niece and nephew on my sister's side, and if Sarah, if you listen to this, and I'm really sorry, but it's true, are a bit more fussy. Right. And I'm like, your uncle's a bloody chef, so please just enjoy food.
I should introduce you to my middle child, who likes olives to the point where she'll drink the briny olive juice.
I mean, I'm loving martini with that in. Can I do a quick tangent from work quickly? Because we were on the kind of subject of people that don't like food.
Yeah.
And it makes sense, because one of the things I've written about that get under my skin or that I generally don't like is Andrew Tate.
Good.
And there is a long reason, a long list of reasons, in fact, why I don't like Andrew Tate. But Andrew Tate this week came out and wrote, and I'm going to quote this: "Food's awful and eating sucks. I hate eating. I hate feeling full. Imagine how stupid you have to be to find food entertaining. Literally embarrassing. If you're a man who enjoys food or cooking in any capacity, then you're a cuck, desperate to validate a non-existent masculinity. And you think, so that's a take, isn't it? Andrew Tate doesn't like eating and thinks if you like eating, you're effeminate. And it's a really weird...
I mean, there is a lot to unpick in that sentence.
Especially a man that walks around trying to flex his muscles. You know, most of the people that I know that are muscular are very much, I eat a lot of protein.
Yeah.
And food is life.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I can't say I particularly liked him before I read that statement.
Well... He's sort of not winning you over with that statement either,
no, he's certainly not. But yeah, just the idea that apparently if you eat and enjoy food, you're effeminate and your opinions aren't really valid. And food is, for me, all about... It's a hospitality thing, whether or not that's in a restaurant setting or at home. Food for me was always, growing up, about being with friends and family, eating, drinking, having conversation. That's what I love doing. Yeah. And if you can do that while actually enjoying the thing that you're putting in your gob at the same time, why not? But yeah, it's a really strange take.
Well, look, so there's work and interesting characters.
Absolutely, yeah.
So he would be an Onion person, wouldn't he?
Oh, God, can you imagine? Yeah.
Yeah, he would be that. He'd just come and say, I don't eat food.
Yeah.
Smash the place up. And run out. Yeah. That's what he do. So, look, so there's some annoyances there. Well, what about from a home point of view? Do you have any at home that...
I think
tip you over the edge.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. I think the first one for me is the price of gluten-free products. So I mentioned the fact my wife can't have gluten, and we're not home often enough. Yeah. But when we are home, all we do is we eat and drink because we hate Andrew Tate that much. But essentially, that's what our life revolves around. We love food, we love drink, and we love music. So we'll spend our Sundays, which is our day off, catching up on paperwork and basically refueling for the week. And we'll do an online supermarket order, and I'll order a loaf of bread for myself, and it will cost me £1.39. Checks my notes. Yeah. Don't want to mislead anybody here about the loaf of Hovis. And we're talking about an 800 gram sliced white bread, nothing fancy. I know I'm a chef, but nothing goes better with bacon and in the morning than sliced white bread. Yeah. And then I'll order Becky a loaf of gluten-free bread that's half the size, 400 grams, and costs £3.70. Yeah. And I don't know why. And it's the same for anything that's gluten-free. It's double the price for half the size. And it just feels like there's people out there trying to make money from individuals that can't eat what everyone else wants to eat. And that just absolutely destroys me.
Yeah, it's not good, is it? There's the equivalent in the tailoring world, or what people expect it to be in the tailoring world, is I'm getting married.
Right.
So suddenly you add an extra zero onto the end, which is, I think, is what tends to be the misconception of. I think the wedding world can be a little bit like that.
I got married this year, and it was very much like that with a lot of things.
Yeah.
Oh, you want like some flowers? Oh, great, no problem. Oh, you'd want them for your wedding? Yeah. I'll just give you another quote now. Yeah. Why is it different? Yeah. And we did a lot of it ourselves. We hosted it at the restaurant. Yeah. We cooked the food ourselves. We had friends that made cakes. We're fortunate in the industry.
On your wedding day, you actually cooked?
Well,
pre-prepped.
Yeah, I had a chef friend that was meant to cook for us, but sadly that fell through right at the last minute. So we prepped everything in the kitchen during the week. So I cooked my own wedding meal, and then on the day, my amazing team of chefs that work with us at the restaurant said, "We've got it," and they came in and cooked for us. They were at the evening party anyway. They just were at the evening party smelling of food, which was, to be fair, what's not to like? Thinks back to Andrew Tate, but but it was amazing at how many things you ask for a quote on, and as soon as they find out it is for a wedding, the price changes, and you think, well, what's different about it?
Imagine if you were having a gluten-free wedding.
Oh, can you imagine? 10 times the price.
Yeah, 10 times the price.
But yeah, it's bonkers. So that frustrates me. But it is. I get it. It's what it is. It's niche. It's ingredients that maybe do cost a little bit more.
But do you think it is the niche more than the?
I think there are definitely businesses that that make money knowing that people haven't got a choice.
Yeah.
You know, they have to have a certain thing, and the only way they can get that is if they pay over the odds.
Yeah.
So I think there is a little bit of that. I think niche is one of the things, and obviously supermarkets are buying in this stock that may not sell, but you'd think over all these years that supermarkets know how much they need to buy, and therefore they've got a shelf life and they can deal with that.
Yeah.
I just think that they know that people haven't got a choice. They've got to buy these things. So that frustrates me. And I think the other thing that frustrates me at home is TV shows about food.
Right.
And that's not fair to say about all of them, because I think there are some that are great.
Yeah.
But I think the hospitality industry's got a really bad reputation. And I think we've worked really hard as an industry to try and improve that over the years. And there are a lot of younger restaurateurs and chefs who have worked hard to make their restaurants and their kitchens really nice places to work and accommodating places.
Sure.
And pay well, and don't beat people into submission in the team. But then you watch things like I'm trying to remember what it's called, Boiling Point.
Right.
And you see Gordon Ramsay on telly, and Gordon Ramsay is an amazing chef and a very nice person.
Yeah.
But they have these on TV personas and representations of restaurants on things like Boiling Point that you just think it's not realistic, it's not right, and it just makes us look awful.
Right.
And right now the industry is in a really tough place where people don't want to work within restaurants, and we're under a lot of pressure financially. And you think it's the last thing we need is that representation on the TV where.
Sure. So TV programs, fictional TV programs, and how they represent that rather than like a cooking show.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've got to be good about cooking shows because without them I wouldn't be here now.
Yeah.
But yeah, and there are some really good shows. The Bear that came out on Disney.
No, I haven't watched that yet. That's come up
really
before. Good. Is it good?
Yeah, it's really good. And I think for all of us in the industry, we watch that, and although it is anxiety inducing for a lot of us, what's great about it is a real portrayal of what happens in a restaurant on any one day.
Right.
Because there are points of it where you just think, well, they're just chopping onions, it's not that exciting. But there are also parts of the show where it is stressful and high tension and whatever else. Yeah. And that's great. But with other shows where it's just screaming, shouting, people dying, people doing drugs and drinking and burning themselves and chopping fingers off, and it's just not realistic about what the industry's like anymore. Maybe once upon a time, but not anymore.
There's not too many programs about tailoring, so we're okay, but I can understand it from your point of view. I suppose for you as well, having been the other side of it.
Yeah, I'm in a weird situation because I came into the industry very late in life.
Right.
So
you're so young and youthful.
Oh, bless you. That's really kind. Now put glasses back on.
Yeah, so I had literally just popped them back down.
But no, I didn't enter the industry till I was in my mid to late 30s.
Right.
And had worked in other businesses. So when we opened the restaurant, I knew of the reputation of the industry, and I said to my wife at the time, we want to open this restaurant, but let's run it as a business in any other sense. So we will treat people with respect, we'll treat them kindly, we'll pay them appropriately, and we'll try and run it so it's a successful business first and foremost, and then a really successful restaurant as its secondary thing. And I'd seen it from both sides, in terms of I've seen it from the TV side of things, and I understand that TV is entertainment, so you've kind of got to put a bit of drama in there as well. And in fact, when we've hosted both Celebrity MasterChef and Robin Romesh, we got told by the production team, hey, give us a bit of drama. Right. And it's just like, I'm not going to scream and shout at people. Yeah. I'm not going to send things back if it doesn't need to be sent back. I'm not going to make it drama for the sake of it being drama, because it's not who I am. Yeah. And I want to represent myself well as the restaurant. Yeah. But then you also do get these points where you see things that are over the top drama, and you just go, it's entertaining, but you cringe when you watch it. Yeah. But I've also worked with chefs both in other venues where I've seen the bullying. I've seen the people putting spoons in fryers and then putting spoons in pots, so someone picks up said spoon and it's 200 degrees and the person picks up burns themselves, or pots and pans being thrown across the kitchen at chefs' heads because they've done something wrong.
Wow.
And you think you're not getting the best out of that person when you do that.
No.
And
So I should stop throwing things at Sam.
yeah, cutting shears, definitely.
Yeah.
Stop throwing those across the cutting floor.
Well, God, things are going to change around here.
Sam looks so happy. But likewise, we've had chefs that have come to work with us, and on their trial shift, or when they're coming in to spend a week with us, they're screaming and shouting and swearing, and you go, right, okay, I'm going to put you to one side and we're going to have a little conversation, because that's not how things are done with us.
Yeah.
You treat everybody with respect. Nobody is beneath you, and you get better from the team. And I think what's good is, with us, most of my team have been with me for years.
Yeah.
Certainly we lost Jaden recently. He didn't die. He just went to Amsterdam. But Jaden had been with us since pretty much the start, as has Rob and George in the kitchen, and Dimitri. Front of house, we've got a number of people that have been with us again, for nearly 5 years. And a lot of restaurants, the turnover is 6 months, and it is a churn. And I think, again, you treat people with respect, you give them license to be creative and to have a good time, and people will stay with you. And that means that then you've got consistency in the quality of what you do, which is great. You don't spend as much money on recruiting, training, so it's it works if you can do it. But I think the industry, unfortunately, has a bad reputation, and some of the TV shows don't really do us that justice.
Yeah, so it's nice to see programs like The Bear coming through, which are a bit more realistic and perhaps a little bit more of that.
Absolutely, and it's stressful watching The Bear, and there are points of it that people go, okay, wow, is that really what it's like? And you go, well, actually, yeah, it is. But it's a fantastic show, and I do recommend it to anyone.
There you go. We've got work done, home done.
Yes.
Now, well, for you, sticking perhaps with the hospitality.
Absolutely.
The what about the going out? Where's the?
Okay, pubs with bad wine lists.
Oh.
I mean, anybody that knows me knows I like my wine, and I like a pub. I like a beer. I do like a beer. I like a pint. But inevitably, I'm probably going to drink wine if I go out more than anything else. And especially if I'm going out with a certain group of friends who are beer drinkers, they're going to want to go to the pub. And there's no reason why pubs have to have a terrible wine list. Because you can get some amazing wines that are affordable. It doesn't have to be that cheap wine's no good. It should be that you just get really good value cheap wine. And also, there's no reason why, if you go to a pub, that they need to have 4 white wines and they're all Sauvignon Blanc, and 4 red wines and they're all Malbec, because there's so many good affordable wines that are different grape varieties. So I find it really frustrating when you go to a pub and you get there and all they have is just naff wine, because some pubs do it really well, and they should all be able to do that. They just need someone who's got a bit of interest and takes their time to say, well, actually, we can find a really good bottle of wine that we're selling at £20 a bottle, or £25 a bottle, or even £30 a bottle nowadays. I think that's perfectly acceptable in a pub.
Sure.
But is something that's just a bit more exciting and tasty. And I find it frustrating.
Yeah, well, especially if you like your wines and want... Because pubs now spend a lot of time and effort in craft beers, and you can go and have 20, 30 different beers, and they can talk about every aspect of the beer.
Absolutely.
And why doesn't that transfer over to wine?
And I think if you consider that, yes, I imagine the demographics in pubs are predominantly male, but I think there's also a demographic in there of the begrudging partner. Or the bloke that doesn't want to drink beer. Or women that are going out with other girlfriends but don't want to drink beer. And therefore, I think there is a demographic for people who want to drink nice wine and shouldn't have to put up with... I don't want to name wine brands because I think it'd be really rude to do so. But the naff New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc that everybody knows. and taste like dishwasher fluid or something like that. So I think pubs just serve rubbish wine. There's no reason. You shouldn't do that. Your one job is serve us decent booze.
Yeah. And, of all varieties.
And stop serving Gordons as gin. They're better gins. But give us nice wine as well, please.
Yeah. Well, no, I think that's a fair gripe, actually. I think...
Are you saying the rest of my gripes haven't been fair?
Well, look, now
he unplugs his microphone and walks out.
I walk out my own podcast. No, I think all your gripes, actually. What's that?
Love Andrew Tate, doesn't he?
Oh, I do, yeah. God damn it, I'll cancel his podcast appearance straight away. No, all your gripes have been very fair, actually. Yeah, I think it's a different time now.
Yeah.
And I think there's a different sort of pub goer now.
I think so.
Going back to when I was sort of doing my main drinking years, it was just go to the pub and have the one beer that they've got.
Yeah.
And I think there's a funny thing with blokes now. It's okay to be nerdy about your beer and to go in and say, where was this from and how was it made? And gosh, this has got a particularly sort of citrusy note to it and all those things. Whereas back in the day, you probably couldn't get away with doing that.
No,
it was just,
you'd have a lager or you'd have an ale. And that was it. That was your choice. Yeah.
So I think that's sort of carried through to beer, and I don't know why that's not carrying through.
I think
wine.
it,
Do you think it
does in
food?
other settings, but not in pubs for some reason. And like I say, I can't say this is the case for all pubs because I do know a number of pubs that do really good wine lists. Yeah. And I know that our wine supplier, or one of our wine suppliers, serves wine to some amazing pubs, and that we've seen our wine lists on their wine list, wines from ours on theirs. And I think that's really good. But I think just in general, too many pubs just do awful wines, and it's just disappointing. And I think, for us, we're in a small village in Blackheath in southeast London, and I think we've got 6 pubs in the village, and we've got one wine bar, and the wine bar doesn't do beer, and the pubs do naff wine, red or white, that's your choice. And it just makes it difficult when I want to go out, and if I'm going out with someone that wants to have a beer, I'm forced to drink naff wine. So, I think they just need to step their game up.
Yeah, so playing a little bit of catch up.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
Other industries seem to have done it, and the restaurant trade certainly. I mean, obviously, it's always sort of been rooted in that sort of wine, but even the sort of restaurants that work at a lower budget, which perhaps aren't known for their wine, have really sort of stepped up.
Do better wines. And I think, there are restaurants that do wine pairings with their food menu, but they will also do beer pairings with their food menu as well. And you think, well, if a restaurant can do a beer pairing and find beers that perfectly match the food, why can't a pub do wines that are tasty and not expensive? Because they're definitely out there. Yeah. And I think it's about value, and I think one of the things in the industry that we've had to adapt to a lot recently with the cost of living crisis and everything that's been going on is just offering value. Yeah. It's not necessarily about it being cheap or expensive, it's about value for money. Yeah. Because if you go somewhere and buy a steak, but that steak costs you 30 quid, but you feel that was a really good quality steak that's been aged and has got a good sauce with it and sides and everything else, you can go, well, actually, I can get value for money there. Yeah. And equally so, I could go and buy a steak from I won't name the name, but let's say it rhymes with Weathermoons.
God, that was code that'll never be broken.
Never work that one out. But that might cost you 15 quid. I have no idea, I'm guessing. Yeah. And you go, well, it is good value. It's not a very good quality steak, and the garnish that goes with it is a bit naff. But again, for 15 quid, it's good value. Yeah. And I think it's always about value. As long as someone can come away and say to you, you know what, I feel like I got my money's worth here. Yeah. I had a conversation with someone on Twitter about this yesterday because they felt that the Sunday roast that they ordered was too expensive. I said to him, the problem is that, the second we put heat to whatever it is we're cooking, we've got to add 20% to it for that. Yeah. And the energy prices that we're paying at the moment in restaurants are through the roof. Yeah. And they're higher rates than you will pay on your energy prices at home. And obviously we are putting a lot more energy on than anywhere else. My ovens, my stoves, my lights and everything else that goes on. So, immediately everything costs more. And then of course you need 3 or 4 chefs and someone to wash up and people to serve you the food and people to pour you the drinks. So you've got to pay for all of those people as well, and minimum wage is going up again, and it's gone up already this year. So all of these things, cost you more money, and that's why your Sunday roast costs you what it does when you go out to eat it in a pub or a restaurant.
Yeah.
It's not that those pubs and restaurants are just basically, rolling around in cash and driving Lamborghinis home at the end of the day. That's just not the case. Our margins are so fine. But if you can come out of that Sunday roast and say, well, actually, I got really good value for money here because I had a nice bit of meat and some nice vegetables and a good glass of wine and had a comfortable chair in a warm pub and had good conversation with my friends, and at the end of it, I didn't have to do any washing up. And I kept a local business going for a little bit longer. Yeah. I think that's good value. And it's the same in the kitchen. People don't understand that I turn up to the kitchen at 7 o'clock in the morning and turn on my ovens and start cooking and preparing. And that, like I say, sometimes is 3 days in the process. And the ingredient costs are high right now because inevitably everything costs more. Since Brexit, everything costs more, especially if we're transporting things from Europe, wines and some fruit and veg. Yeah. Then your staff costs are high because the cost of living's high, so you need to pay your staff a bit better so that they can afford to survive. Yeah. So that costs more. Energy bills, ours went up £1,000 a week this year. Whoa. £1,000 a week. Now, as a restaurant, we don't make £1,000 a week in profit. So you've then got to find that money somewhere. And you've got to find a way of doing that without putting your prices back up, because, of course, if we put our prices up, people don't want to pay it because their energy bills have gone up at home and their shopping bills have gone up. So all of these things go into it. And, of course, the big kind of elephant in the room is VAT. Yeah. And it's, that's definitely a gripe of mine, because that's just it's a tax on what exactly? It's just the government saying, well, I want to charge you an extra 20%. Okay, cool, but why? Because you heated something up. But that's not really fair, because I bought that apple and it didn't cost me anything. But as soon as I roasted it to go with my pork, you're charging me, I've got to charge 20% on it, and I'm giving that straight to the government. Yeah. So we try and work really transparently as much as we can, and if anyone follows me on Twitter, they'll see that I'll often do that when I'm talking about the business and the industry. But again, it is that there's so much expense that if you were to go into a restaurant and spend £100 on a meal, for one person, for 2 people, for 4 people, depending on where you're eating, the reality is that the profit on that for a restaurant is probably less than a £5. And the majority of that has gone to paying the staff, paying VAT and other taxes, and then your utilities, your rent and everything else on top. And the reality is that, yes, you can absolutely do that cheaper at home. You're not paying for the ingredient, you're paying for the whole thing.
And everything's cheaper.
Absolutely.
It's incredible.
£1,000 a week. Mad, isn't it?
Oh, that is crazy.
Yeah. We pay $83,000 a year on our energy. Wow. Okay, it's a small restaurant, but it is what it is. And then you talk to the energy companies when you're negotiating it, and they say, well, actually, if you had a restaurant in Manchester, you'd be paying less. Yeah. Well, but why?
How does that work?
It's the same electricity, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. But it's those little things that you pay for that you don't understand quite why you're being charged that. And it kind of goes back to that same thing about gluten-free bread. Like, why am I paying more for it? Well, because you have to. Because someone's made that decision. And you haven't got a choice.
Environment tax.
Environment tax, And
well, we do pay an environment tax essentially on our energy, and we have to pay a levy. And to a certain extent, I'm fine with that. There are taxes that I'm very cool with, and I think generally taxes are an important thing. We need to pay tax, and I think generally I'd be happy to pay more tax if I got better public services for it. Sure. But when you're paying tax for essentially nothing in return, you just go, "Wow, this is nasty."
Yeah, and it feels unfair as well. I always think when you look at a business and you take energy, for instance, as you were mentioning there, when you look at energy and it's something that is the same for everybody, it's going down the same routes into a property as it is a business, and the difference between business and property, or personal use, it's this, as you said, it's the same electricity, but because it's a business, we can't cap it, we won't cap it.
And it's at a higher rate as well.
Exactly.
Our kilowatt hour price is higher than it is for a domestic, but it's the same energy.
Yeah.
But I will charge. And it's a wedding. I will charge you more.
Charge more.
Oh, you're a
Exactly.
business. We'll charge you more. And I think that's where it's frustrating. These things that are just charged more for the sake of it.
Yeah.
Insurance.
Yeah.
Insurance is that you have to have insurance for certain things.
Yeah.
Whether or not you're ever going to claim on it,
Yeah.
you have to have it.
Yeah.
And then when you want to claim on it, they'll either charge you more because, well, you've claimed on it now, so we need to put your premium up. And you go, but that doesn't mean I'm going to claim on it again.
Yeah.
Just because I claimed on it once doesn't mean this is a regular thing.
Yeah.
And then often when you try and claim it, you can't. I'd say you probably won't know this, but a couple of years ago there was this thing called COVID. Have you heard of it?
It seems to ring a bell, like maybe a customer.
It's quite niche. It's quite niche. So obviously, COVID affected us all. One way or another, it affected everybody in the world. I'd like to say in the country, but in the world. And hospitality was hit quite hard in the sense that we were also told by the government, you aren't allowed to open. You've got to shut down.
Yeah, same as us. Yeah.
And I won't go into the political side of whether or not that was the right decision and how they acted afterwards when we were allowed to open and then close and then open and then close. But you then say to your insurance company who you've been paying all these years, hey, I've got business interruption insurance and my business has now been interrupted and I can't trade. So I'd like to claim for that, please, because I've still got to pay my insurance, despite the fact I'm not now trading, but I need to still pay my insurance, that's fun, and my rent and my energy bills and everything else that I've got to pay. So I've got these overheads that I've got no income for, and your insurance company says, well, actually, you're not covered for a pandemic, sir. Well, but why not? Because we're paying insurance for a reason. And that's where in things like insurance, again, what's the point of having these things if you're forced to pay for it, but actually it's not worth anything because you can't claim for it?
Yeah, it's very strange. Like, if they did an insurance that was, you can claim for anything and there'll never be a question over it, but it's going to cost you X amount more, I think a lot of people would probably go for that safety, because it's a safety net. That's how you think of insurance.
Absolutely.
It's a safety net, but
but you just think be fair with it. Just be realistic and fair, because you've had thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds of my money every month for years and years and years and years, and then when eventually I come to you and say, hey, look, I need some help now, and they go, well, actually you're not covered for that.
You can't have any. It's the gluten-free business of the world, insurance, isn't it?
Gluten-free wedding insurance.
Oh look, now there's the place to be. We've got one last thing to go for. Now, I'm bringing down the bowler hat.
Okay.
Now, what this bowler hat is the last section of the...
It's like a lucky pick.
It's like a... now, which we cleverly called off the cuff.
Okay.
Because it's the off the cuff thing that you haven't thought about. Yeah, exactly. Quite. But as a previous guest has pointed out, we then put the off the cuff things in a bowler hat, which then stops it making any sense. So
it's got to be a pun there somewhere, I'm sure.
Well, there has. We're yet to come up with it. But the idea was to pin these to a cuff so that you could,
I think a bowler hat works better.
It does, but we need to find a
something
sort of...
with a rim. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
This is going. Sorry, Sam. Sam's giggling in the corner now.
Take it that way.
Sorry,
Well, call it what you will as you take a subject from the rim.
God, I'm going to go for this one.
Well, I was seeing if I could push
this is ironic. We've got hairdressers.
Ah.
I know this is a podcast, so if anyone doesn't actually know me, I am bald.
As am I. As is Stu.
Yeah.
Sam is not.
Sam, what's bad about being a hairdresser? Okay, well, I can't...
first thing, do you cut your own hair?
I do cut my own hair, and I think...
And trim the beard?
I do trim the beard and moustache, when I need to.
Right.
So... Okay, it's not specifically hairdressers, but it's hair related, and I think what's frustrating. So I am bald.
Yeah.
I'm not purely bald. I shave my head because I should shave my head at this point. You get to that point in life.
If you let it grow, would you be doing the Phil Collins?
Oh yeah, I mean it would look terrible.
Yeah.
I weirdly started balding at the front in the middle.
Okay.
And then started going at the top and everywhere else. Where normally you end up with that little island in the middle. That's the bit that went bald first for me, which is fine.
So you went backwards.
I went backwards.
You got a bigger forehead.
I did, yeah.
And a longer fringe.
Absolutely, much, yeah. And for me, if I were to let my hair grow out, because it is quite dark on the top, not in the beard, I would have a very, very thin top.
Right. Okay.
And it would look good. And I think you get to a point in life where you make a decision of, I don't want to look like this anymore because I look like an idiot.
Yeah.
So I shaved it all off, and that's fine.
I can relate.
Yeah, I think, in this room, we can relate, and that's fine. But everyone says to me, oh, it must be really good. It's easy maintenance.
Yeah.
And annoyingly, it's more maintenance.
Yeah.
Because when you have a shaved head, you have to do it every single week, sometimes twice a week, because otherwise it looks really bad.
Yeah.
So, so for me, it's not going to the hairdressers, or unless you do that yourself, but I can't afford to because I run a restaurant.
Yeah.
But now I need to shave my head every single week to maintain a bald head.
Yeah.
And that's ridiculous because I am bald. I shouldn't have to do that.
Yeah. 100% I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
100%, because it is that weekly thing, and I'll know if I've left it slightly too long. One, Sam keeps looking at the top of my head and I go, it's got fluffy on the top, hasn't it? And she'll be like, yes. But also, the thing that goes along with it is, I don't know what your clippers are like, but my clippers are bad. And they miss, or there's 3 or 4 hairs that just lay down and then stand back up.
Yeah.
So we have nice little, letting you into a little
the
shops.
Snips. Little cotton snips.
They're really good for getting.
We use those for herbs in the kitchen.
Yeah, you see.
But I use them for threads at home. But herbs in the kitchen. Yeah.
And they're threads and the 1 or 2 hairs that won't.
Yep.
That the clippers won't get. I don't know what that is. How is that even possible?
Rubbish clippers.
Eyebrows.
Oh, don't. My wife constantly will say to me, "I got to get your eyebrows today."
Yeah.
And this is going to sound really attractive. Ear hair.
Sweet.
But it's not even inside the ear now.
No,
it's outside the ear. Come on.
Yeah.
I don't need this in my life.
Yeah.
It's bad enough that I'm bald. And now I've got to shave the outside of my ears.
Yeah, they're plucking.
Yeah.
Did you just try and pluck? Oh, yeah.
Nose hairs as well. So
nose hairs,
obviously,
eyebrows.
I'm well known for having a moustache.
Yeah.
And I'm sporting a full beard, as we discussed earlier. But if you've got a moustache and then you have nose hairs, often those two things connect.
Yeah.
And then when they do connect, you spend half the day going, oh, God, something's up my nose, what is it? So I rip out nose hairs. My wife hates it.
Yeah.
Rip out nose hairs.
Will you stop doing that?
Yeah, exactly that.
Apparently it's less the actual fact that I'm doing, it's more the sort of jerking movement on the settee, I think.
Or if I'm in bed and I find an eyebrow hair and I'll rip it out and then the whole bed jerks and then she wakes up and then I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
So,
but once you know it's there,
you got to get it.
I can't leave it.
No, you've got to get it.
So if someone points it out, I'll then be like, until it's gone.
But yeah, it's frustrating.
Using the kitchen tongs she doesn't like.
Oh, is that what it is? Yeah, the good old kitchen tongs for their hair. Yeah, I've resisted that so far.
My kitchen, when you come in to eat my food, we definitely don't pull out eyebrow or nose hairs with our kitchen tongs.
With the kitchen.
We use the fish tweezers, obviously.
Without doubt. Well, I imagine actually they'd be pretty good.
Yeah.
Actually, because they're quite tight.
They'll definitely
a tight sort of.
They'll be able to grasp a hair if they need to, but no, your little snips we use for herbs in the kitchen.
Yeah.
But we had a chef who has a shaved head as well, and he once missed a patch and came in and used one of his cooking knives to get that little bit of hair, because it's the back of the head that you can't, you don't always get, you miss
Tops
it occasionally.
Yeah,
and occasionally you'll get the clippers on the back of the head and you miss a bit, and that's what he'd done. He's missed a bit, and someone pointed it out, so he had the kitchen knife out.
Yeah. Well, why not? That will do it. That will do it. Yeah, I'm with you on the. I sort of miss going to the hairdressers actually, because I haven't been now for.
We could pretend that you're there and ask you if you're doing anything nice at the weekend.
Yeah. See, it's all that sort of small talk. Some people don't like the small talk, but I sort of.
But do you do that here? Is coming to a tailor's similar to going to a barber's? Yeah,
barbers or a hairdresser's,
where you have that small talk of doing anything nice for the weekend, sir? Do you dress to the left or the right?
Well, sometimes you do have to go down that route. Or sometimes a customer will nicely tell you which side they dress. if they're only having a shirt, they've gone above and beyond. Well, that's very nice.
Or they're really enjoying the service.
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, that's once and only once I didn't ask, and I should have done, because it was for a fashion show as well, actually, because I was measuring 4 trousers, and I measured one thigh, and then I measured the other thigh and went,
that's a bit bigger.
And he went, oh, I'm dreadfully sorry, and hefted everything out of the way. Yeah, it was. They're laughing over there.
You know, that same face you did when we talked about boiled eggs.
Yeah.
People off mic have just done that.
Yeah, it was an experience I wouldn't necessarily want to repeat as a tailor. It was there. Well, he hefted.
I'm so glad that you haven't videoed this and it's just on microphone.
Yeah, well, hey, we've always said, right, when we started doing this podcast, that it was a sort of anything goes.
Yeah,
really.
absolutely.
The chat should be about, wherever it goes. I wasn't expecting it to go there today. No. I don't think any of us were. No. But, hey, look, we're there now.
Good old Errol Flynn.
Good old Errol Flynn. So let's bring it back to hairdressers. And so there you go.
Yeah.
And on that note, on that bombshell, we could leave it there. But so listen, it's been a real pleasure talking to you today.
Likewise, thank you very much.
No, I can't. That's one of the things with me. Once something's there in my mind, it's going to just keep coming back. And you brought wine,
of course,
and I don't really drink anymore.
I know.
So everything's combined to take it there. So anyway, been a pleasure speaking with you today, Tony. And let's do it again.
Absolutely, sounds fun.
Without the what word am I going to say?
Heft.
Yeah, without the heft and the. But no, it's great. Lovely talking to you. Thanks ever so much.
Thank you.
So there you have it. Episode 5 is in the bag. I have to say a massive thank you to Tony for coming on the podcast and for bringing a bottle of wine or two. Some of you may know that since recording the podcast, Tony sadly had to close his restaurant. Hospitality businesses are having it so tough at the moment and with very little help. So do follow Tony on social media. He explains it so much better than I ever could. Thanks as always to not only our guests but to Stuart Wilson for editing and production, Sam for keeping us moving along, and to Dat Hazard for the music. So until next time, do try not to get too shirty.